To me, it's two things. One is the people in the room. So for me, it's all about the teacher. And two, it's about the space. So I don't even consider innovation to have anything to do with a tool or technology. I think what I'm most passionate about and what we see a lot here, the emphasis shifting towards focusing on people. So as an educator, how are you making sure that your learning space is alive? How are you actually educating these kids to be our leaders in the future? Are you allowing them a voice and a choice in what they do and how they do it?
You're listening to the Physics Ed Podcast. For hundreds of ideas, free experiments and more, go to pizzics-education.com.au. And now, here's your host, Ben Newsome.
Yes, welcome again to another Physics Ed podcast. It's a big week this week. We are speaking with Craig Kemp, who is the Head of Digital Learning and Innovation at the Stamford American International School, where, tell you what, he is incredibly busy helping out over 500 staff, 3,000 students and the wider community to get some seriously authentic and purposeful integration of technology into the classrooms. Now, you might have come across Craig before. He's very, very well known through social media. Seriously, check him out on Twitter. Thousands of followers checking him out, doing all sorts of stuff around education. And he's a highly sought after professional development speaker who does a bucket load of workshops and seminars and keynotes, all about not only motivating and inspiring people to do stuff, but he's very much about the practical and creative ways you can implement your ideas for technology into your classroom. So today is all about getting passionate about some serious education change in your classroom. More importantly, how you go about doing that in the wider school community and beyond. So let's listen on into Craig. He's got a lot to say.
This is the Physics Ed Podcast. We're all about science, ed tech and more. To see 100 fun free experiments you can do with your class, go to pizzics-education.com.au. That's physics spelled F-I-Z-Z-I-C-S. And click 100 free experiments.
I'm a Kiwi. Don't hold that against me. Most of us are pretty good people.
Yeah, except for the Bledisloe last night, but over the weekend. We won't mention that.
No, I decided I wouldn't bring that up at all.
No, of course not.
My family and I moved to Singapore 6 years ago, and almost 7 years ago, actually. And we decided that we'd come here to have a bit of a change. We thought we'd come here for a year or two, but we've been here almost 7 years now and absolutely love it. I guess my career as an educator started almost 15 years ago back in Dunedin in New Zealand. So I'm a Nelson boy, South Island, taught in Dunedin for 7 years. I'm primary trained, taught in grade sort of 2 through grade 10 in the past 12 years. Since being in Singapore, I've been particularly interested in design and STEM. We've developed our new STEAM In program here at Stanford, which I could talk about a little bit later. And my job here, I have a team of 6 staff that support the effective and purposeful integration of technology into the classroom. And we're pretty lucky. We have 3,000 students from K through 12, and I have 500 teachers that I work with, thankfully not on a daily basis, but I work with them every day. And I have 2 young daughters. One is 4 and one is 6 months old, and they are absolutely amazing. On top of that, I am lucky enough to travel the world, speaking, running workshops. I've just got back from a week in Sydney, Melbourne and Newcastle, running workshops with schools over there about effective and purposeful integration of technology. And I'm super excited about being here to talk about my passion, I guess, today as well.
Absolutely. And I must say, hearing all that, I mean, having a 4 and a 6 month old, you're saying, how's that sleep treating you?
Yeah, it's getting there. We've started the new school year here and I'm pretty exhausted, but that's just the way it is, right? All parents know that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got young kids as well. I just honed in straight on that going, okay, on top of being involved, did you say 3,000 students? That's not a small school.
Yeah, no, we've got 2 campuses. We're actually from 2 years of age to 18 years of age.
Wow. No, that's awesome. Now I definitely want to go down the purposeful, digital integration, all that type of stuff. I mean, that's exactly why I want you on this podcast was, hey, you do a lot of it. But I always just wonder, like, where people have actually come from? And yeah, you were down in Dunedin doing some teaching and whatnot, and obviously teaching from grade 2 to year 10 and all that stuff means you've had a lot of learners in front of you. But what sent you down the education path in the first place?
Yeah, good question. I guess the one thing that I really sort of got me going was my mum was a teacher. She was a late training teacher, so she started training when I went to high school. And before that, she was a teacher aide. She's just one of those sorts of people that's caring, giving, just interested in helping others. And my dad is an information technology manager at a hospital. So I had both pathways, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I thought, hey, let's just do teaching, see what happens. As soon as I started, I absolutely loved it. So that's what started me off in the career, I guess. And then as far as my transition to becoming a digital learning leader, it sort of started from social media, being connected on Twitter. I love social media. I'm addicted to social media. I love it. That's where I do all my learning, a lot of sharing. I started blogging. And then I just realized that people had a real need for learning how to do stuff. It's no longer acceptable to dump stuff in people's classrooms and expect them to do it. We have to invest time in people. So that's sort of where my passion has come from. And I think a bit of it's from my mum and a little bit from my dad.
I bet. And just thinking about that's a quite a palette you've got to paint from in terms of just, digital integration and helping people actually understand what these hardware and software tools actually are and what they can be useful for learners or their own back-end tasks. That's quite broad. I'm just kind of thinking, I don't know. I know there's a few people here I know who definitely do that sort of work, and there are others who don't. I mean, what does that look like on a week or month basis? What sort of things come across your plate?
Yeah, I guess the biggest focus is on, I'll take it back a little step. So I've been at my current school, Stamford American International School, and you can look it up if you're on social media, on Twitter, it's hashtag SAISRocks. And our teachers tweet and share learning out on there all the time. I started my journey here about 4 years ago. And in that time, we've transitioned our digital learning program from where we had ICT teachers going into classrooms and teaching ICT lessons, and that's 3 years ago, to now where we've just developed a series of what our digital learning framework is, and that will be released very soon. It's just been released to our staff here, and we'll share it publicly soon, but it's sort of 18 months in the working of what a digital learning framework looks like. I guess on a weekly basis, it's an emphasis shift from focusing on teaching kids skills, which we used to do and some people still do, moving towards focusing on upskilling our staff so they can effectively and purposefully use the technology that we need them to do to add value to student learning. So the whole shift from being student-focused to teacher-focused was very difficult in the start, and we've faced many challenges, many challenging people, many challenging circumstances, but it's the best thing we ever do. I think one of my mottos here is that our job is to work ourselves out of a job. We know we've done well when we're no longer required to support teachers in the classroom. So that's sort of what my team are trying to do here. And I'm very lucky. We've got an amazing team. And you can see that using the hashtag as well. But yeah, I guess on a daily basis, it's meeting with teachers, going in, modeling lessons in classrooms. It's bringing in new technology, trialing it and testing it, running parent workshops, running community workshops, getting our teachers connected with the world, providing opportunities for our kids to be entrepreneurs, to create, to design. We've developed our STEAM module here at school as well, which is done from our early years all the way through to our high school. So all sorts of things. It keeps us very, very busy.
I think you're just having fun, aren't you? Just listening to it.
It's a pretty cool job. It's cool to be able to do that.
Absolutely. In fact, when you said work yourself out of a job, I used to work in environmental science, and in some ways we used to sort of joke about that too, that if we're doing our job properly, we will have no job soon.
Yeah, exactly.
But then again, let's be honest, the learners keep coming and the technology just keeps on changing. And that's where it really is interesting, because at the coalface, now will be obsolete potentially in a couple of years' time. So that means that, I guess the issue though is when we're integrating these type of things, you kind of want to go, you don't want to always just say, here's the newest, shiniest thing, do we? It's also like, well, what's the point of this new shiny thing, or do we really need it yet? And
yeah, so I guess our biggest emphasis is on the why. So our whole model is focused on why. If you can't answer why you do it, and if people want to follow up a little bit about where that why comes from, look up Simon Sinek.
Yes.
He's an amazing speaker. And we've sort of focused on the why. So everything we do is comes from that why. Why are we doing it? Why will it add value to students? And where and how does it fit into our curriculum is really important, without giving teachers more workload, because we know how busy they are already. We're all educators here. And we want to make sure that we're saving people time, not giving them more things to work on.
And that's definitely the challenge, isn't it? And I mean, obviously rolling out new programs. I mean, I'd love to hear more about this STEM N program, because that really intrigues me. And obviously, as a science educator, my ears prick up straight away.
Yeah. So it's something that was launched here a couple of years ago at Stanford. And the STEAM In, of course, the STEAM, which I'm sure the listeners have heard about, but the In being the innovation side of things, so making sure that we are innovative in our practices. So the STEAM In, we run the IB curriculum here with US Common Core standards, and we have sort of tried to transition which is and was a very traditional curriculum to be more innovative, more forward-thinking, more suitable to our learners. So part of that is developing our inquiry units and moving towards incorporating STEAM into everything we do. So it's not just a topic, because that's not what STEAM is. It's not a topic. It's not a thing that you go and do. It's like a way of being, a way of doing, a way of thinking. So we're transitioning and training our staff up on utilizing tools effectively and purposefully. And the T and the E are very small portions of what this whole thing is. So it's incorporating and changing the way we think about maths teaching, incorporating, changing the ways we connect and engage with the world, science, engineering. So our design classes here are adapting and changing to this as well. So it's making sure that we have projects, ideas that are not just made up by someone, but are also student focused. So the students have a big say in what and how they learn as well.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of always wonder. I mean, it is sometimes easy to just throw in a quick like a word like innovation and whatnot, but actually making it actually happen is a whole nother story. And also imagining what that picture looks like. I mean, just sort of if you think about it like a classroom itself, what would make you go, you know what, this place is completely humming in terms of a brilliant, innovative space. Kids are doing a bucket load of stuff versus not.
Yeah, I think to me, it's two things. One is the people in the room. So for me, it's all about the teacher. And two, it's about the space. So I don't even consider innovation to have anything to do with a tool or technology. I think what I'm most passionate about and what we see a lot here, the emphasis shifting towards focusing on people. So as an educator, how are you making sure that your learning space is alive? How are you actually educating these kids to be our leaders in the future? Are you allowing them a voice and a choice in what they do and how they do it? So changing the way we do things and changing people's mindsets is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's something that is a real theme that comes out. I mean, you mentioned before that you're on Twitter, and I 100% know you are. You can't help but see when you're involved in that. I mean, I was only in the the Aussie Ed chat last night, and it was all about innovation when it comes to PBL project, all those projects and things like that, and permission to fail, which is somewhat useful for kids, especially when it comes to resilience and building capacity in students. I mean, I know briefly you mentioned before about winding in a little bit of entrepreneurship into some of these lessons and things. What kind of things would you love to see happening? Just imagine, like, here we get out the wand and we wave the wand, and the wand says there's no worry about time anymore, and there's no worry about resources anymore. There's just people wanting to do cool stuff. With that in mind, I mean, what sort of things would you love to see happening in schools, irrespective of it being at Stanford or anywhere else?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's all about student voice. So I would love to see more student-initiated programs, more opportunities for students to lead learning, more opportunities for them to actually transfer what they're doing into the real world, which could mean creating a business, starting something up. So a couple of examples that I'll share. One is a program that I've created called the Techsperts, which we use here, which you can find them on Twitter, Techsperts.edu. And it's a program of student technology leadership. So we've actually introduced it to several Australian schools. It's in about 15 schools now, where student tech leaders in the school lead learning with their school. And it's focused not on technology ability, but confidence. So it's all about having children speak, share. They become facilitators in their school for staff, for parents, for other kids, whole community. So our Techsperts here, and they're grade 4 and 5 students. So that's about 10 years of age. Just spoke to a conference here, EduTech Asia, in Singapore last year, to an audience of about 500 teachers, talking about virtual reality and how they use it in their classroom. And we empowered that by giving them voice and choice on what they could share on. The other thing that we are trying to do is develop opportunities for students to take their ideas further. So we're actually starting up a competition here, working with the Young Founders Summit with a company called Smarter Me here in Singapore, where there's going to be an opportunity for our 10 to 17-year-olds to not just enter a competition to develop a business or to create a product, but then take it further and get seed investment. So there's actually going to be a whole lot of investors coming in, listening to their ideas, helping them grow and develop their idea into a business or an opportunity to actually have that as something. So it comes from a US competition, which last year funded all sorts of projects, but in the last 12 months, this 12-year-old boy from Israel is a good story. He created a water-saving app, and he's just ticked over $1 million value in his business. So it's pretty amazing to see these sorts of ideas coming through, and that's what I would like to see more of.
Absolutely, and I agree. I mean, this student entrepreneurship, like you say, it doesn't have to be. Nothing wrong with a lemonade stand; it does its job. But I tell you what, if you're creating a business with literally $1 million going down the line, I mean that's actually quite serious, and also obviously game changing. And it's good for the student itself, but also considering that's about water saving, that's brilliant. And it kind of reminds me of you ever heard that platform Brago, where those people haven't heard. I mean, think of a Lego EV3 robot that was turned into a braille maker. It's just brilliant for visually impaired people. That was done by a student. It's
incredible.
That's the thing. I kind of feel that if you give the kids capacity to do stuff and the tools to do it and a little bit of room within the syllabus to actually make it happen, really cool things can happen. I mean, actually, just out of interest, were you doing IB stuff back in New Zealand, or is it? I
was not. No, it's new here.
What was it like transitioning across?
Yeah, so I've taught in using the New Zealand curriculum. My first international school was teaching with the Australian curriculum. I guess adapting from New Zealand to Australian curriculum was pretty simple. There's a lot of similarities there. I think transitioning across to which was the MYP program, the middle years program here, wasn't too hard. Curriculums around the world, to me, I've seen several now in countries all over the world, and they're all very similar. I guess the differences with the IB curriculum is that it's pretty open. It allows learners to explore in their own way. There's a lot less, fine line on making sure you're tested and assessed all the time. But also giving them opportunities to grow and learn. So I think transitioning from one to the other wasn't too hard, but I sort of had to open my mind to what the possibilities could be.
Which would be interesting if you went back to the previous ones you're working in, because you then bring that headspace into the confines of that other syllabus too. And so, I suppose there's got to be something to be said for actually swapping things around a bit, because it keeps you as an educator open to things and seeing new ways of doing things, which is fantastic. I kind of wonder you deal with a lot of digital tech, and we don't have to go down the different rabbit holes of the different ones out there, but there are certain broad topics that are certainly coming. I know when I went to ISTE out in Chicago, there's a lot of people very curious and interested about doing VR and AR and drones and 3D printing and bits. I kind of wonder, how could you imagine the future classroom actually embracing these?
Yeah, I think it's part of me worries about the focus on AR, VR, mixed reality. We're invested in it. We've got a lot of that stuff happening here, but I think what we're trying to do is target it and focus it on the learning and not on the tool. So I think as things transition and change the classroom of the future, which I'd hope that we've stopped now talking about 21st century classrooms, because we're well and truly beyond that now. We should be focusing on what's going to be in the classroom. And to me, I'll go back to what I said before as well. It's all about the people. So, I mean, technology is going to change the way we do things, but it's not going to take away those human-only elements like creativity, caring, empathy. Those things are really important for teachers to be having now. So providing opportunities to connect and engage, to me, is one of the best things that you can do in a classroom.
Well, absolutely. I mean, despite all these digital tech bits around, I mean, still some of the best technology ever invented is simply just a pen and paper or a whiteboard, somewhere where you can converse and collaborate around. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything more than that, which is, you know, good if you can have your VR and AR and every other R that you want to add. I tend to agree. I mean, I kind of think of some of the simple, even just on the science side of things, just the most simplest engaging experiments for students can simply just be stuff with water. It doesn't have to be over the top. And that's something we're certainly asked a lot about when we do our own TPL programs is just, we need all the fancy stuff. And well, just hang on, do you know how to run an experiment yet? Let's do that first. No, it's absolutely, it's good fun. Now, you've had to go around to a lot of conferences and all that. What's that like trying to fit that amongst your schedule with 3,000 students and a bucketload of teachers needing support?
Yeah, I mean, it's really important. The first and foremost, my priority is here at the school. So I'm invested here. I do a lot of hours, but it's all invested into making sure that our program and what we're developing and delivering here is world-class and world-leading. But I guess I do a lot of speaking and workshops, and a lot of that happens in my own time. So a lot of it is weekends. My school holidays is when I do a lot of the Australian trips. I come out at least twice a year for a week at each time to run workshops in Australia. So it's all in my own time. So I've got a very understanding wife who sees the passion that allows me to go and do these sorts of things. So it's very exciting. So yeah, I mean, it's just investing time in doing what I love and making sure that the focus is first and foremost on the school.
Now, obviously, as part of talking at these conferences and bits and pieces around the place, inevitably that means your part of your job is also advice. So I mean, if you had people who, I don't know, just say they'd taken on a brief of upskilling their staff cohort within a school, within a school district, for all we know. What first steps would you suggest that they'd need to start considering as they start to roll out a digital learning program?
Yeah, the first thing I would say is that it's always pedagogy first, technology second. Too many schools start with the technology and try and make things work. So what I guess we've been in the situation where we've been technology heavy when we're trying to adapt that now for the pedagogical purposes. So think about the learning. So always start with the why. Why are you trying to develop a program that's going to include technology in it? You must know your why before you continue further. So for me, it's all about that why, then following that up with how are we going to use this to add value to student learning, and then really working together as a team and making sure you've got good people that are backing this. So making sure you've got the innovators, the people that are going to try things, and people that understand that mistakes are okay. Because when we trial and test things, I always say to people here that mistakes are great, and we should be making more mistakes in front of our kids because mistakes happen. Mistakes are the way we learn. And we should be promoting and adapting that. So I think the fear of making a mistake often stops us from going that next step. I would 100% encourage people to get involved in making sure that if you're trying to develop a technology-rich program, start with the people, start with your why. The resource we use are the ISTE standards. So you talked about going to ISTE. We use the ISTE standards. here, and we use the ISTE standards for students, the ISTE standards for educators, and this year we're rolling out the ISTE standards for education leaders as well. 100% takeaway from here. Go and have a look at those.
Absolutely. So if you're not sure what ISTE is, International Society, Technology and Education, it is a big group of really passionate educators right around the planet, not just in schools, by the way. They're in libraries, museums, zoos, aquariums. They're all over the place, but predominantly schools in different ways and guises, and from the very big of 3,000 students down to the very small of only 20 students. And it can be very rich, and good 70-odd countries get involved with that every year, which is fantastic. And a great PLN to get involved with. And actually, there's a bunch of PLNs, let's be honest, in different areas. But really, really cool. And look, Craig, I know you've got to run off to another meeting. And look, before you do so, I mean, there'll be people who would love to get in touch with you. How would they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me at my blog, mrkempnz.com, MRKEMP.com. You can find me on Twitter at Mr. Kemp NZ. If you're on Facebook, you can search Mr. Kemp NZ as well, and you'll find the Facebook page where I'm sharing things out, and all the other social medias as well. You can reach me at Craig at mrkempnz.com. And if you're interested in when I'm coming out to Australia or New Zealand over the next 12 months, you can check out the website as well. There's a piece there where you'll see all my dates when I'm going to be out. We can be in touch.
Absolutely. And then, like always, we'll put that in the show notes so we can find stuff. And I'd imagine if you're visiting Mr. Kemp's blog, I guess you could subscribe to that RSS. There would be something there, and you'd hear what's going on with that too. But yeah, look, much appreciated, Craig. And you clearly are a very passionate educator, and I can imagine that when you're face to face with students, the kids will be buzzing. But now, I suppose your job now is getting the teachers buzzing too, which must be a lot more fun from a capacity building point of view. Do you miss teaching the kids?
Oh, absolutely. And I do my best to get into classrooms whenever I can. I absolutely miss it. And I think that I wouldn't be doing my job right if I wasn't connected in some way, shape or form. So through our Techsperts program, I'm connected on a weekly basis with kids. I pop into our grade level classes all the time, running CCAs as well. So I coach volleyball here, so I can't get my hands off it. It's as an educator, I think all leaders in leadership should be involved somehow in the teaching component, and that should never change. I think you lose a lot when you step outside of the classroom, and you need to keep that connection going.
I agree. And actually, one thing that I like to do, because it can allow me to do this as well as do other things, is I'm literally sitting in amongst a whole bunch of renewable energy stuff, because I was teaching a school up in Queensland. I'm down here in Sydney. So I've got all this, no, it's an audio thing, but I've got all these little experiments, wind turbines and bits around me. And we connect by video conference because I can do work from here and then connect with the school, then go back to doing the other work I'm meant to be doing. So there are ways you can still teach without not always being in front of the kids too. So this kid, you can you can have both. You can have your cake and eat it too. but yeah. Well, thank you very much, Craig. Much appreciated for coming on. And look, have a fantastic evening and a great start to your school year.
Thank you so much, Bino. Appreciate it.
You're listening to the Physics Ed Podcast. Why don't you book us for a science show or workshop in your school? We love seeing students get excited about science, and you will too. Go to pizzics-education.com.au and click on Schools for more info.
Well, there we go. We're just hearing from Craig Kemp, who's seriously an all-around good guy from New Zealand, but I must say he's doing some fantastic work in Singapore at the Stamford American International School. And tell you what, you really can connect with him. Check out at Mr. Kemp NZ, again at Mr. KEMP, N for Nelly, Z for Zebra, something like that. Mr. Kemp NZ on Twitter, because he really does do a lot of work. Check out the hashtags What is School, hashtags Asia Ed, and hashtag PubPD. He is the creator of all those three hashtags and really has a lot of insights when it comes to doing technology in education. And I tell you what, even though he does a lot of work in schools, his headspace around doing this could be used in anywhere, museums, zoos, aquariums, you name it. Some of the things he's getting up to certainly is applicable in your areas too. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed listening to Craig. I certainly had a great time having a chat with him, even though his New Zealand team did beat us in the Bledisloe Cup this year. Yes, I am a rugby tragic and fanatic, but we won that holiday against them. The All Blacks do a fantastic job. But look, until next week, I hope you have a fantastic week. I hope you're being inspiring and as innovative as you can, and I hope you're having a fantastic time doing it. You've been listening to me, Ben Newsome from Fizz-Education, and you've been listening to the Fizz Ed podcast. I will catch you next week.
You've been listening to another Physics Ed podcast. We're excited about science. Subscribe to us on iTunes to download the next episode as soon as it's released. And don't forget, for hundreds of ideas, free experiments, our new Be Amazing book and more, go to pizzics-education.com.au. That's physics spelled F-I-Z-Z-I-C-S.
This podcast is part of the Australian Educators Online Network. aeon.net.au